Hello, everyone.
I don't know.
Hello.
It's creepy.
Hello, hello, hello. We
Hi.
are live. We are live here on Twitch. My name is Bryant Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra. And we have a couple fine folks here today in the chat with us. I am joined in the bottom right hand corner, it looks like, by Alex, Bonnie, and Michael. Alex, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, I'm Alex Waro, an editor at Gamasutra. We're a few minutes late today. It's all my fault. I got a haircut and I was too embarrassed to come in front of the camera.
I can confirm all those things are true.
No.
Yeah, but they coaxed me out, so thank you all for joining us.
Yeah. And Bonnie and Michael, can you introduce yourselves and what game you're on and why I asked you to come here? Could you please explain? Tell me why I asked you to come here.
I guess. Do you want me to? I don't know. Alphabetical. Hi, Bonnie Bogovich. I'm the former audio lead down at Shell Games. During my time there last year, we worked on a radio play adventure game about Sherlock Holmes, except all audio and all for the Amazon Echo. And we did a couple articles on it. And now we're going to do a talk on it at GDC. And one of the guys that worked with me was Michael.
Yep, I'm Mike Lee.
I'm pointing at you.
I'm Mike Lee. I'm an advanced game engineer at Shell Games, and I work with Bonnie on working with the Echo and making sure we could make a interesting audio adventure using an audio only device. So, and that's our GDC talk basically.
Nice.
Ta-da!
Hold on, we're having some connection issues there. You guys are bouncing in and out. Is everyone okay? Everyone good? Everyone can hear me?
I feel okay. Are you
Yes.
okay?
Sweet.
Yeah, I feel good.
Cool. All right.
Good.
Well, to get started, just a reminder for those in the chat, if you have any questions for Bonnie and Michael about working in game development, about making an audio adventure, feel free to type them in the chat, and we will ask them for you, for everyone on the screen. Bonnie has a great audio setup behind here that you can look at. Um, uh, Maybe we'll have her make some Foley effects for us live on the show. I don't know if we're gonna do that. That's too.
If we need to, I could.
Yeah, but just to get started, how did you all get started working on an Amazon Echo game? Like, what made you look at an Amazon Echo, a thing that you can yell at to get you more dishwasher soap, and decide we're gonna make a game out of this?
I guess I can start being that I'm more of the audio voice person of the team. We were working on something called Jam Week, which at Shell Games is sort of 1 week of the year. People drop everything that they're working on and collaborate on teams to try to invent new IP. And one of my passion ideas had always been, can we please do a very either audio heavy or audio only game so that people who are blind can play it or with physical difficulties can play it. Also, we had a lot of really talented voice actors in the studio, and I was always hoping to give them more things to do. So we came up first with, hey, let's find some way to just do like a radio play that also had branch point adventures. And then the second step was try to find something that actually was built to handle that sort of thing. And we originally started with a prototype system that Tom Q, one of our voice actors and designers, found, which was sort of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy emulator that someone had made online for free, but you still had to click through everything to simulate all the paths. But around the same time, we kind of had the Echo on our horizon, and that was like a year ago, whenever it was still relatively new. And back then, you had to, I believe you had to say Alexa blah to do anything. But within the most recent year, they
I can understand the question.
Am I Alexa? I have one in the studio. I'm gonna hit mute on that. Sorry, but they upgraded the software so much that you don't need to use the command word anymore, and a lot more opportunities opened up. So when we did the second year, Mike here was very crucial and instrumental in making sure that we could actually get it to work on the thing we originally hoped it would work for. Just because I work in audio doesn't mean I'm good at words. So I'll let him talk now.
Yeah, so it's sort of interesting. The project we built it over basically 2 of these jam weeks because we have a jam week each year. So it, in a sense, took 2 years, but it really took 2 main development weeks. And the second year when I joined in, so I had seen the previous version, and it was very tech prototyping. And they had a lot of awesome audio and a lot of interesting story paths, but the technology didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And this was at the point where Amazon, just a few months earlier, as Bonnie was mentioning, had rolled out a bunch of improvements with the Alexa system. And I was interested in sort of playing around with that. So basically, at that point, it made a lot of sense. Like, hey, we know we're starting to hear a lot of people use the Echo at home, and people, as you are trying to get more use out of it than just as a, hey, Alexa, buy me dish soap or reorder like a bunch of cookies from Amazon. People wanted to start playing around with some of the weirder experiences you could do there. And so that's where basically we jumped in, and it's like, hey, can we make this game on the Echo? And that's what that entire week of Jam Week was. It was built around sort of getting the technology, fitting it into sort of a weird ecosystem. And
yeah. And also, one of the nice things that once we finally got it working in a setup that was different than the previous year, which was somebody watching a screen, somebody sitting backwards in a chair while another person hits buttons, we were able to play it with an actual audio device, which meant we found a lot of holes early in the week. So one benefit of the Alexa system being super, I consider it really speedy to adapt from what we started with. We were able to find holes in the plot. We were able to tweak the narrative a little bit. So even though I would say 98% of all audio recording and story writing was done in the first week, like the year before, we only had to do a couple little things like tie-ins, error messages where Watson yells at you if you screw up. We had a thing where originally we called it the dissing of Irene Adler. Irene Adler kind of takes you off the path and then everything ends. We let you actually get out of that loop before breaking the game. So I don't know. It was nice to having it working on the final product that we intended it for. Let us actually do a full round of polish, which we didn't expect to have, which I really appreciated.
That's really cool. I'm surprised it took 2 weeks. Only really 2 weeks. Like, it was 2 years, but it was also 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, afterwards, we definitely had to polish up, add a few more details here and there, but it's sort of weird because Jam Week is really like a celebration of getting together. And it's like, hey, we have a really cool idea, and people stay late, and we're working late at night trying to get everything as much as we can in, because at the end of the week, we just want to show off to everyone else in the studio sort of what we created. So
yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Michael, you're sitting in front of some people in the chat are asking. They say they haven't heard of Shell Games before, which just a shout out to David Weirl there in the chat, and I can see some of your fellow Shell Games people showing up in chat too, which is fun.
Hi, Shell Games people.
I can see behind you. I Expect You to Die, which is the VR game. I know you all were working on. That came out of your Jam Week too, right?
Part of it did.
I think part of it did. I think that actually one of the tenets of Shell, so for people who don't know, Shell Games is a game studio. We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Bright and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
The Steel
Town. Founded by, yep, good old Steelers and everything. And it was founded by Jesse Shell.
Steelers.
And some of you guys might know Jesse Shell from his book, The Art of Game Design, and he's given a lot of talks at places like GDC and such that have gone on, and you can watch them on YouTube and such. They're really quite fascinating. And we deal a lot with like new technologies. So one of the things, like I Expect You to Die, it's a VR game that just came out last December for PlayStation VR and Oculus Touch. And that didn't quite come out of Jam Week, but it did come out of, I think we had a VR Jam. That's, again, similar to Jam Week when VR was just starting to get traction, and we wanted to see a lot of different ideas for what worked. And I think I Expect You to Die started out basically a room escape simulator. And
also, I think there were a lot of different elements too. Like back then, nausea was still being researched. Those of any of us who've been working in VR for a while remember the couple years ago where everyone was figuring out the vomit limit of how far can you push someone. What should you not animate? And I remember some of those demos going on, I believe, during Jam Week.
A couple years ago when everyone was vomiting in VR. Everyone.
I was one of them. I never thought I could be motion sick until we started working on I Expect You to Die.
Yeah.
And I'm a roller coaster enthusiast. But man, it's changed though, because that game no longer makes me ill. So hey.
Dang. Yeah, so I guess I've gotten lucky enough to write a few articles about game jams at game studios, but can you two sort of why do you think game jams work really well at game studios, and like do you think other developers should try them out if they're working at a game company, like people in the audience, for instance?
What was one of those questions?
Why do you think game jams work so well for companies like Shell Games internally?
Oh, so one reason I think game jams really work well just in general is,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes you'll have like a really crazy or stupid idea.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say stupid, but sometimes, really good stuff can come out of like silly, stupid sayings like, oh, what if we had a game, but just it did this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I know a lot of studios like Double Fine, they had the Fortnite Amnesia. I
Mm-hmm.
know Cappy Games, they have Cappy Jam a couple of times, and they've had also a lot of success out of those. And I think one thing that really works well with game studios is, one of the hard things with a jam is knowing how to get started and finding teams and figuring out who works well with other people. But at a game studio, we all know each other. We've been working next to each other for who knows how long. And so getting started is actually quite easy. And, we have a lot of experienced devs here. And so once you have a cool, fun idea that other people are on board with, it's easy to get the ball rolling and just make something that is a prototype, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But you can take a lot of exciting results and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where whenever you're working on games for years, and sometimes years, I've been on a couple down there that were like 4-year-long projects. Like if anyone's heard of World of Lexica, that one was a long-term project. I Expect You to Die was in development for like 2.5 to 3 years. It was 2 to 3 if you include like that early non-vomity stage, or vomity, non-vomity. But whenever those pockets come up where you're waiting between QA and another project to turn on, what's nice is if a studio has things like those little IP generation Jam Week projects, they can analyze them and go, okay, if we had time to throw money at something, that one might actually go because we just need 4 artists, and look, those guys are free, and we would only need 1 audio person, and that person's free. So I think it's a great way to fill work time. So you never know when it'll actually take off, or if it'll just be a really good learning experience for the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're totally spot on. We've heard very similar things from other studios that run regular game jams or game jam-esque things internally. What I really want to dig into is this particular experience, the Baker Street experience. As you guys were working on it, like how did you justify seeing it through to the end? Because so often when we see a project come out of an internal game jam at a studio, it gets greenlit and becomes an actual game, they will actually put time into making it, polishing it, and releasing it on a platform they can sell it for, make money on. But like I played the experience this morning, and I couldn't give you money if I tried. I might have liked to. So like, what is the value to you in trying to put games out on the actual like Alexa store?
So I can talk a little. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go after you. I have an idea.
Because it's a really good point. So we actually sort of knew that coming in, because as you mentioned, Alexa is sort of a weird ecosystem where it's been designed to not explicitly not take money, like Alexa skills, as they're called. You cannot pay money; they're all free. And actually, that's actually changing a little bit soon with Amazon, or potentially, but it's really designed as a way to connect people to different services, and theoretically, that's where the money is. So we knew that going in. So one of our goals with the Jam Week was, hey, we know we can't really justify this in a commercial sense, but we can justify this as a studio that's interested in exploring new technologies and being able to show that to other people. So, Shell Games, we do a lot of client work too. And one of the things we're really proud of is there's a lot of new emerging technologies, things like VR and AR and, Alexa and other voice-enabled devices. And we're really proud that we're able to say we've worked on all these different things, and we are capable of learning new technologies really quickly. And so that's sort of where we came at it from the studio side.
Yeah, and I would say one of the big things we had going for us is because we spent literally 2 full Jam Weeks developing the project. It was basically ready to go as soon as we hit the end of Jam Week. All we had to do was hit, like, I forget if it was confirm or submit or something button, right? And then off into the ether it would go and come back. But there was no reason not to publish it, being that it was a really good showcase of not only voice acting talent, but we had artwork because we implemented, there's a home card art system that the Alexa skill set had came up with. So as you're playing the game, if you watch it while holding your phone or an iPad or whatever tablet device, there's actually really beautiful paintings done by Ben Green, one of the art directors at Shell Games, that he did to go along with the plot and the scenery. So we were able to showcase art, direction, tech support. It was like just a really good portfolio piece for everyone. And like Mike already said, showing that people in the studio now understood this skill. So even though it wasn't a fully directly marketable opportunity, if Amazon ever does finally add the pay to download option for skills, like this is a company that has done something. In addition to, I know a lot of ways, I've been to a couple Alexa workshops. One big thing that they say the skills are good at marketing for is pre-existing products or as sort of commercials promoting upcoming projects. So like there was a game called The Wayne Investigation, and that was built to help promote Batman versus Superman. There are also other potential opportunities. I know we sort of talked like maybe one day, like in the game I Expect You to Die, which is behind Mike Lee's head right now, maybe there would be an audio game where you talk to Dr. Zor and you get him on the phone and you try to do like sneaky spy talk. That would be somehow helping advertise another product, because you do get credits on all of these apps that you can put, HTML links and other things in. So it's basically like free airwave advertising as long as you understand the system.
Yeah, Mike T, who's hanging out in the chat, from
Hi, Mike T.
Yeah, says
He's from Shell Games.
There's always a way to give you guys money. You just have to be creative.
Money, please. I would like some money.
Yeah. So, and to be clear, like I think this stuff is rad. I love all the audio stuff that's popping up on Alexa. Earplay is doing some cool stuff as well. And I'm really glad you guys took the time to do it. I was just really surprised that you could actually justify it. Go ahead.
Speaking of Earplay, a big shout out to John and Eddie from Earplay. They helped us work on our proposal for our talk at GDC.
Nice.
They're lovely people. They're doing some amazing stuff. If you guys want to look into some of the up and coming audio adventure games, their team is spot on. They also have an upcoming project called Pugmire, which is going to be a really weird fantasy thing, which I had the pleasure of doing. I did some voice acting on it recently. I can't say what characters, but I can say that it is going to be very enjoyable. So I see a lot more development from companies like that coming up in the future as it just gets easier and easier to use the software.
It's great.
Wait, it's called Pugmire. Do you play a bunch of pugs?
Yeah, you play dogs. It's great.
It's kind of an anthropomorphic like D&D setting, except everyone has dog heads, except the bad guys are cats.
Yes, right on.
And I can't say much more, but I highly recommend looking them up. Also, whenever we were talking to them about our project, I dug in a little bit. One of their really good projects is called Cygnus. They have a spy interactive audio game and on the Echo, and it's pretty neat. You basically listen to an earpiece the whole time and go through spy situations.
I just want to really, before I get to a question from the chat, I want to say they're all good dogs, Brent. They're all good dogs.
Yes. I mean, are you a good dog?
They're all good dogs.
Any game where you can get good boys, okay.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. The question from the chat is, did the accessibility aspect of audio-only games for blind gamers influence your decision to make audio games? And that comes from White Cane Gamer.
Yes. That was always like one of my big things, because there's a lot of folks like every now and then at GDC you run into a couple talks about games available for the blind, or also physically disabled or anyone with hand issues. There's a lot of games out there that a lot of folks cannot play because it requires 7,000 mash buttons and a twist. But trying to make games more accessible, and not even for that, like trying to hopefully eventually move into more games for long travel or while behind the wheel of a car on a 4-hour stretch, things that you can play without requiring your hands.
I was actually going to ask about that, if you thought games like this could be played in the car.
Oh, sure. The downside is the current version of our game requires wireless. But, I wouldn't be surprised if in the future wireless is not going to be as big of an issue.
My
moving forward.
my mom's boyfriend's car has Wi-Fi in it, so that's just like one
Oh
way.
wow.
Like we're already like
So,
that's playable. You could QA that right now.
yep.
Yeah, that,
So
Uh,
everybody just
yeah,
pause.
if you have
Who wants to
a
go first?
yeah, if you have a because Alexa, they're rolling it out to the Kindle tablets and everything too. So, I mean, theoretically, as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, you could work or wherever you can go with that. So,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nuts.
because basically the system underneath the Echo is actually Alexa. So yeah, the Fire tablets now have Alexa. They're talking about pushing it out to other devices. So I see it growing, and I wouldn't be surprised if Google Home starts following the same suit
yeah.
because now they have like their version of the Alexa, which looks more like a votive candle, as opposed to a black speaker. But I can see audio games taking off even more as we see more of these types of devices
Yeah,
becoming more
Yeah.
affordable.
this is
Yeah.
this is purely anecdotal, but my mom was playing a lot with her Google Home when I was home for the holidays, and she's also someone who listens to the Harry Potter audiobooks a lot, like
Ah,
over and over again in the car. So if you mix them together, that actually kind of opens up a new field for
sure.
people who want to do audio interactive adventures who can just make simple. If you can make sure you're not, I guess, layering on. Because she probably isn't used to like the branching choices of like an Obsidian RPG or something, but like that seems doable.
Yeah, and I think the benefit too of a lot of those bigger IPs like Harry Potter and everything else, a lot of them, including from the films and video games, they have those audio files already. It's
Yeah.
just more of a case of somebody building that material into the structure that fits whatever format you're using. And what's nice is, ironically, once we finally were able to release our version for the Baker Street experience, which was done sort of the old school before there was a template format, they released a template after that Wayne investigation one went out. So now it's even easier to port a lot of audio files into a game. They're
Oh,
trying to encourage it. They released a whole platform on it last fall.
yep.
So you're saying people who are in the audience right now could get to work on their own audio adventure for Alexa
Sure,
for
for
Amazon
free.
Echo.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah,
you can test
for
it out
sure.
without owning one, which is kind of sweet too. Like there's like a browser interface, Mike. The thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
Amazon does a really decent job making it relatively easy to go in and develop really quickly. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually reported on that a little while ago. So if you want to pop over to Gamasutra, there's a story on that. Just run a site search.
There's a
I wanted
link to Gamma down below. Click on that link if you need to get to gamasutra.com.
Pointing.
perfect. So like beyond just a feather in your cap and some experience in making these kind of games and getting to have a very accessible choose your own adventure style game, like what like I would wonder how did working on this project like really shape you as game makers? Like what did you learn from this that you can apply to your future projects, like if anything, you know?
I know one thing that we're going to talk about in our talk at GDC is learning to work within limitations can actually make a better game. Because even though you would think that possibilities are infinite, you're on a streaming service, that means anything goes, but there are rules you have to play by. One of the big ones was even though you're uploading audio files, each audio file has to be limited to 90 seconds. And at first it was like, oh god, no, 90 seconds, but we have 4 minutes of dialogue. But then as you're developing an interactive story, you learn that people don't really want 90 or more seconds of someone reading to them, because if it's an interactive game, you start to lose people. So it actually helped us to have to craft our story and our dialogue within those smaller bits, along the way. And I found that one of those things. Originally I was really like, oh god, I'm the audio person, I want more, but I was happy to have less. And also because this was one of the few games that I worked on while I was at Shell that I got to actually have a design and a little bit of a story support role. Usually I just help make the sound and direct the sound, but not have a say in how the story might work.
Yeah.
So being that our team was, I think the core team was only about 4 to 6 people, a lot of us got to hone skills that we normally didn't get to. So I appreciated that.
A question for you, Bonnie, because I think it's like you said, sound people sometimes don't get. I feel like the thing I hear most from sound people in the game design world is no one appreciates us enough. Uh, and
I'm trying to do it.
I wanted to know what were some of your favorite ways to make story and choices to build story and choices out of sound. What were some of your favorite tricks you discovered on this project?
On this project?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I loved finding many different ways to burn Scotland Yard to the ground. It was really fun. There's a couple really bad endings where I had to experiment with screaming and people going crazy. But one of the things I really enjoyed, because one of the big words we try to keep from the beginning was radio play, because I'm sort of a old school fan of, live radio theater where you got the Foley guy with the door and he's got to sling it, and then there's the shoes running by. And we actually recorded some of our group scenes. We had like Tom Q playing Inspector Lestrade. We had Bob Jones as Watson, and we had Ryan Hall as Sherlock. And and the two of them are having a muffled conversation at the end of a hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I tried to simulate it a couple times for what would happen if the policeman swung the door open, slammed it shut, and ran in, the best version we got was literally having them barge into the audio booth, take a beeline across the room, and go breathe heavily into a mic, and then interact it. So it was fun to do live theater in a way, as opposed to just reconstructing everything in post. The luck was everyone was already in the building, so we could do that.
Yeah.
And it was fun trying to make poor Tim Roscoe. He was our fabulous narrator. He might be listening. He said he's having some connection difficulties before. He had to read so many lines. So many lines. And then we kept having to redo the prompts because one of our goals was Alexa can talk to you as in that sort of robot woman voice all the time to give you instructions. But we set aside, one of our goals was to have everything spoken. It was all human, which meant Tim had a lot of lines, a lot of prompts, and he had to say in interesting, non-interesting, yet not boring ways, like, to go further, do this. Do you want to inspect? Do this. Da-da, do that. But he had to do it within a time frame because that also fit into our 90-second gap. So you have narrative plus him giving instructions. And it was just a fun exercise for his vocal cords, and I really appreciate Tim, if you're listening, good job.
He's here. He's here. He's Tim the Wizard in chat.
Tim the Wizard, yes.
And
while
we're in chat, I just want to say, David Whirl, David Whirl wants to ask if everyone in the live stream has a part in creating video games. The short answer is technically no. Bonnie and Michael work most often making video games. Alex and I work for Gamasutra.com, which is a website about the art and business of making video games. So we're here to let you talk to them.
And it's also okay if there's theater people out there. I'm also, if it helps to add variety, I do opera and theater as well.
Nice, nice, multi-talented.
That mixes well with voice actor people, I find.
Yeah. Michael, I wanted to guess you real quick. What were sort of like what were some of the unexpected programming challenges of making an audio adventure like this?
Outside of just getting things implemented, one of the weird things was sort of thinking, so it's sort of a traditional choose your own adventure when you boil it down.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like subtle permutations, especially when it came to one of the things the Alexas are built around is theoretically you should be able to say something to it and it should be able to understand that, right?
Yeah.
And Alexa handles a lot of that on their end. They handle all the voice recognition part. But then it's up to us on the programming end to be able to understand those prompts and then appropriately say, oh, this prompt goes to this decision, this prompt goes to this decision. And then also, so not only was there that aspect, there's also figuring out, as Bonnie was saying, we recorded Tim telling you a lot like, oh, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that. And then it's us figuring out, oh, at this point in the story, how do we've kept track of your history up to this point, and we need to be able to reiterate the correct prompts so you don't feel frustrated, you don't get stuck, and we give you the correct prompts to keep on going forward. Or if we think you are in a bad, sometimes you hit a bad, you input something and Alexa can't quite understand, how do we naturally transition you back in a way that doesn't break the immersion of the story? So it was a lot of those little tricky things that we focused on to prevent the seamlessness or not prevent the experience from being seamless as possible. So
yeah, one of my favorite things that we added in the second week when we came back and got everything in was error prompts and finding ways to make it not feel like we're being jerked out of the game, because we invented 2 lines for Bob Jones to read as Watson to make fun of you as was what he says something like, "Holmes, are you drunk again? Give it another go." Instead of disconnected response, not you know. We really try to keep you at least in a witty, hey, we're just having a laugh, but you're not out of the game yet kind of environment. And that was one of those things we threw in pretty late in the game too. I think we didn't actually get that working until like the last day.
There's
yeah,
there's a lot of like default prompts that the Alexa throws at you, and then it's all up on the technical side to decide how you want to implement it. And again, Alexa can handle it using its default Alexa speak, but we really took it upon ourselves to try to integrate as much of the world and the voice acting and sort of building this experience of like, yes, you are talking to a black little cylinder, but if you can close your eyes, you can sort of imagine you are in a Sherlock Holmes story, even a small way.
And going back to that one, you had asked the question earlier about what kind of Foley and sound experiences were really fun to do. Like, we really tried to push the ambience layer on a lot of the stuff. So as you're playing the game, you may have noticed that we tried to, you're inside Sherlock Holmes's, living room, and you hear the fireplace going, and there's an angry clock in the background. You are in an alley at one point. Tim is narrating a little bit about what a dingy alley is. Meanwhile, I have stuff like people throwing buckets of waste onto the sidewalk, and there's a crying baby and some dogs eating a bone. And it's just little things like that we just try to keep you sucked in as much as possible. And the only time where we take the ambience away for a bit is during those prompts where they give you the decision points. But we try to slap you back in as much as we can, so you feel like you are inside the experience.
Okay, can we just take a minute? I'm sorry, Bonnie. I love to hear how people make Foley, like how people make sound effects. I remember going to a studio in Canada once, like a big studio, and they had they had several rooms, and they just had piles, like an old car door, and then like a bunch of chainmail lying on the floor, and there's a microphone and a brush. It was fantastic. Could you show us some of your stuff you got there?
I've got a whole bunch of garbage down. Hold on, let me.
It's not garbage. These are tools of the trade.
It's all functional.
Sometimes
it's garbage, though.
Functional garbage.
Some of it's garbage, but a lot of it, like, you never know what you'll use. Like, I have random things. Like, I was telling the guys before the podcast, I've got like a Maraca over here, and you never know when you'll need an actual hotel ding. Wait, hold on. There it is.
Nice.
But you also use the bits for like other things, like running sticks along pieces of metal. Give you stuff. So, I randomly bought a new steel drum for $1 while I was in Austin, like last week.
Awesome.
You never know when you're gonna need
steel drums. Sure.
I've got a bag full of like 40 types of paper over here.
Oh my god.
And here's my hold on.
This is amazing because she's got a really good microphone, so I'm hearing like these sound effects. They sound so good.
Yeah.
You never know when you never know when you need one of these.
Oh my god.
We all have one of those inside of us.
Well, hopefully you do. Mine's made out of hard plastic.
What was the?
But also sound banks. Like there are sound. Like I do not own a tank. Sometimes I worked on games where I can show you like I buy things like these, except digitally, like the General 6000 library, where I don't own a tank or a horse or some other things, but you can always mix together real life into other things.
Yeah. Sometimes you need the sound of
like
a horse riding a tank. Yeah.
I will say Scotland Yard. I did not actually burn down Scotland Yard for our game, but I did add some like, if my mic's on, like, I
know that sound. Yeah.
I did add some of those with my face, because that's literally what half of the AAA people are doing these days, is going. Here's my mic, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But some of the screaming was people in the booth, and some of it was like a file I had of people screaming 10-59, and I mixed a couple things together. Screaming baby was a file, dog barking was a file, water spilling on the ground was half a file, and I think some stuff I recycled from something else. So it comes down to what can you mix with for real, what's quicker to do yourself, what's more fun to do yourself, and what to use software for.
But
it's just fun, you know.
My favorite audio story I have is when I was in college, we were working on a couple projects that we needed a lot of sound design for. One case, we had to recreate an entire soundscape from scratch, and my friend went out and recorded. He found a deer skull in the woods and stepped on it and recorded it. and we just used a sound of a cracking deer skull for all these different things.
Yeah, Jello was also really good. Mix Jello with that, and you're
Yeah,
golden. Then you
we
got like a
at, at one point we bought steaks and punched the steaks a lot.
that's good for fighting sounds. Like,
Yeah.
good for
Bonnie, I have
not
a
actually
question.
hitting people.
I have a technical question about
Sure.
working on Amazon Echo games. So I'm curious, from a mixing standpoint, is there anything about the physical Amazon Echo speaker that affects what kind of
Hmm.
effects you can get in there? Because I know, like I don't, I this is where my vocabulary is going to come to an end, and my brothers would step in really well because I know like the shape of the
Uh,
speaker and the kind of output it create could limit how like what kind of range of sounds you could get compared to like obviously a full IMAX setup, for instance. That's just the broadest example I've got.
well, well, I mean, ironically, they came out with a better, not a better setup, but like I have a couple Echo Dots now in the
Yeah.
studio here at my home studio, and you can now connect Bluetooth speakers of any type that you want. But they do have a specific MP3 type of file that you need to encode to. Mike actually built up a
Yep.
way to quickly pop those out, which takes down the super high quality a bit. It's also to streamline the pull from the cloud.
Hmm.
So you can't
Mhm.
do like a full 7.1 crazy pants Omnimax experience mixing thing.
Yeah.
But I will say that the Echo, like the bass Echo itself, has a really lovely speaker setup. It handles bass pretty good, not insanely well, but it handles it well enough that you would be pretty happy. Like I have one just sitting in my dining room and it sounds great. The high is good, the mid is good. You just can't do super heavy bass and low end mixing. I'd say try to keep everything in a middle range
Hmm.
and keep some stuff more on the high. Just kind of not as intense as if you're mixing purely for phone speakers because we know how painful those can be.
Hmm.
uh, but stay to the mid and relish the low when you get it, but try to keep the majority of your stuff in a listenable area, just kind of in the center.
So would you say it's harder
I
than just this is me
Sure.
this is me the idiot trying to understand the brilliant audio talk I'm hearing. Would you say it's harder than to create something like the effect of like a whale, the sonorous sound of a whale, if you will? Like it would
The
be harder to
sonorous.
make something like that happen versus other sound effects.
Well, it depends on the whale.
Like
uh, Whales can be pretty loud.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't. I guess if you want to do, let's say, an earthquake,
yeah.
right, or something low like that, you would have to hide the rumbling a bit. Someone once told me that is the way they call it when I was at GDC one year. Is you have
Mhm.
to hide the low inside of a higher sound
Mhm.
just to make it hit, because otherwise it is gonna overpeak and cause a bit of a weird kind of feedback. So I say, I don't know, it's all little tricks. Just trying to think of it as if you're working out of a tablet speaker, both a little bit more give. That's probably not the answer you want.
Yeah,
I don't know. Make an earthquake game and we'll talk, and I'll help you. I'll help you tweak it.
it did remind me a lot of, yeah, working with mobile audio. You can't have
Yeah.
anything too quiet because again, things will just get lost in the
Oh, that's
ambience of
yeah.
the room and everything. So
That's a really good idea too. Trying to keep everything compressed so that no matter what, all the important sound is always up front. You can't really treat things as super, like if someone's whispering, you got to bounce that up top, because you got to think, like if you're listening to a radio show or something in your car, everything has to be at a stable level if you want to get a continuous kind of reporter
Mhm.
experience.
yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I had something else to say, but I forgot it. Burp. I don't know.
Yeah.
No worries.
Alex, did you have a question?
But one big tip though, and we learned this once we finally got a device in the studio. Always, seriously, guys, always on anything, especially if you're doing mobile or Echo or anything that has a speaker that is not whatever headphones you want, or even if it has that option, always test on the final platform, because that is how you'll know what you're getting into. Such as the Echo Dot, right? Yeah, it's cheaper, but it does not have the giant. It's cheaper because it doesn't have that giant tower of speaker that takes up this much. Because the Dot is like this little chunk at the top,
Mhm.
so it works good for like on its own as a message system or someone telling you what the weather is today. But if you want to get sort of a really good full audio experience, either get the tower or hook that thing up to
Yep.
Bluetooth. So that's the downside also. You never know what your audience is going to finally output to. So you kind of have to play for what you think is the most common chance of listening.
Yeah, I always feel bad for audio folks in games, especially as more of them moved. Like, I mean, they're fantastic people, obviously,
I'm just gonna
but
keep.
especially as more and more people are playing games on phones and more devs are working on phone games, like you can't count on your player like using a nice pair of headphones or having a decent pair of
Nope.
speakers. You can't even count on them ever having the sound on ever.
Yep.
So
Yeah, which sucks. But hey,
yeah.
yeah, that happens. That happens.
And Brian, I did have a question, but it was for Bonnie, and it was dumb. It was just the softball, like, what is the weirdest sound you've ever made? Because that's my favorite question to
Oh,
ask.
Yeah, that's a good question.
vomiting. Vomiting's a weird one. We had a game once, not in this project, but there was vomiting. And Derek Hederick, who's one of the artists at Shell Games, he did multiple takes on vomit, and then we got feedback on it and had to add more and less liquid, so that was a fun one. I've also
Please don't
and
demonstrate
also
that.
here's also one fun yet challenging yet weird game that we recently just had released. Thank God I can talk about it. Annihilator, which is a comic book adaptation for VR for Google Cardboard. Tim Roscoe helped me do sound on this one because I needed a lot of voices of people being basically ripped apart in hell.
Okay.
So it involved a lot of things. I don't know if I can do it now because I just had coffee, but there was stuff like like all that except stretched out really long with like
That's a really
like stuff like that.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
But Tim did that. I had to do that. I think Ben Green, he was also art director on that. We all went in the booth and did our best, like disturbing. I'm all purple now. We all did disturbing sounds, and then I had to stretch and manipulate those together into really creepy ass stuff. So that is fun as hell, but also really tiring. But you never know when that skill is going to be important on another game.
Alex, I didn't know we were going to open a portal to hell today on our show. Madre de Dios.
You never know, right? You never know.
Yeah.
Oh my god, our chat is applauding for you, Bonnie.
Thank you. Kaplod.
Kaplod.
I can't see Kaplod. Thanks, guys. My throat is a little scratchy now, but
yeah, that's gonna be hard. Like, because like stuff like that is like super. I mean, that's what the SAG-AFTRA strike right now is all about. Is the fact that stuff like that can be really hard for people in game development. And
well, imagine someone being asked to do that like 40 takes in 3 hours, and then they have like a speaking role as a child character the next day. That can, yeah, no. Like I remember I recorded. We talked about torturing Tim. I Expect You to Die, going back to that, behind Mike T in the poster. Or Mike Lee. Sorry, Mike Lee. There's another one, Mike T, the guy sound like. But so Jared had, we had a narrator who speaks in your headset, and that one that's a spy. He had, I think, like at sometimes 300 lines we'd have to record in a session. And I had to make sure that he has time to prep ahead of time, and then we break it up into chunks so that he doesn't destroy himself. Because you may think just talking normally for a long period of time is fine, but add that puppy up and you are fried. You will be just. And the downside is if you have another session the next day, if you overkill someone, their voice will be different the next day, and then it's not going to match up anymore. And that people always notice little things like that when they play something. So
yeah. I should ask that. Are you a union shop? Because I know SAG-AFTRA is currently like deeply embroiled with like health concerns for voice actors in games.
Shell is not. My personal studio is currently not, but I'm a big advocate of vocal health, especially because on the side I do voice acting and I sing in an opera company, and I also do like choir writing and this stuff. So it's like if you don't take care of yourself or encourage people to, you can destroy somebody.
Bonnie,
it's a real instrument to take care of.
Yeah, curveball question: how has opera affected your game design career?
It got me into game design.
Yeah,
as it does normally. Yeah.
And my career, I started doing a lot of game stuff before I was mostly doing opera. I used to be behind the scenes tech head, and I did a lot of sound design for films and whatnot. But then I wrote a show about zombie survival called Evenings in Quarantine, the Zombie Opera, with a co-writer of mine named Liz Rischel. She's crazy and awesome. And we did this big multimedia show that we semi-intentionally wrote ourselves into as leads.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly we both had to have, starring roles in the show that ran for a year and a half, which was great. But it's a lot of and blood and guts and singing about blood and guts. And while working on our show, some of the extras in our performance, because we had some live people in the projected background, turned out to be people working at Shell Games. So whenever an audio position opened up, I had some people on the inside who recommended that I apply, because I'd done like film and museum stuff and a bit of games, but I had also produced this giant wacky ass project about zombies and guts and noises and alarm systems. So I always tell people zombies got me into video games. Specifically singing about zombies and covering myself in corn syrup a couple times a year. But yeah, and I think what's really good is because I come from a background of stage management before I was a performer, knowing spreadsheets, asset tracking, keeping docs in organization. Whenever you do audio for games, it's asset tracking, keeping spreadsheets, trying to stay everything organized, that production element you take with you. So I think anyone who's good as a stage manager has a really good future as either a producer or a designer or an audio person in games, because you know how to keep everything marginalized and small in little packets, and not to go mad when you have a chart that says today we're recording 700 lines with 4 child actors, and and you need to have a guy vomit in a corner, and then there's a portal to hell over here. Yeah, but also being aware of vocal health from being a performer as well, because I've been in a lot of production companies. I think it helps to make sure that we treat anyone we were, or like whenever I was at Shell Games, I'm not there anymore, but that we treated everyone with respect and tried not to burn them out. So
and I will say,
I've got one more thing though, but also being part of a stage manager, and I had sound design experience in a stage live actual physical setting. Once we broke into VR, I understood that better than almost 2D games, because I understood like actors up front, you want to have atmosphere in the back, you want to have a cue coming from here. It just relates so directly to live theater, because it's all a performance of what you want the player to hear and see, and where the cues should come from. Sorry, that was it.
Yep. And I just wanted to add on just real quickly with, having worked both at Shell Games and on contract jobs and doing my own independent projects, it's always with audio people, I always appreciate, because audio people are often brought up oftentimes really late into the project, and it's sort of like, oh, here's everything already settled, and you sort of just need to work with what we got. And the earlier you get audio people on, you can really craft awesome, unique experiences that take advantage of the sound and the music. So that's my props out.
I would say I have been on a bunch of contract projects, and I relish the opportunity to be in as early as humanly possible, because any say that an audio person can have in what your system you're using, or how many assets you might actually need, or how things are going to be configured, helps us to help you make a better game. Right. And also makes the final process and the QA period a lot smoother, because there's nothing as terrifying as getting in at the last end and they don't have an audio engine figured out, or there aren't any even basic hooks to start something in. Like, the earlier you can get them thinking about that, the better.
Yeah, you're certainly not alone too. Like, pretty much every contractor I've talked to in games, they want to be in right at the start, because then they can work with the narrative team or the level design team or whatever to actually like make whatever they're going to do sing, rather than just like kind of come at the last second and try to patch it in where they can.
Well, I mean, I always try to think about if you ever want to pitch it to someone trying to help out, say you could have an hour or a half hour or a 2-hour conversation now, and save 8+ hours later.
Yep.
It's like, how do you want to balance it in your budget?
Yep.
Because that one conversation can just save so much frustration in the end.
Yeah. We are running out of time, closing off on 3 minutes to go. So I'll just remind the chat, if you have any questions for Bonnie and Michael about audio adventures or making video games or anything else along those lines, please ask them now so we can throw them in. Alex, do you have any parting questions for our guests today?
I want to know how Michael survives working at a studio by day and then running his own studio by night.
Oh, this is an interesting question. The answer is I don't sleep much.
Got it. Honest. That's kind of what I figured.
Oh, yeah, because Yeah, my independent. Me and another artist here at Shell, we have our own little studio called Dodoko. We've done things like we released a game last year called Outdot for iOS, and we've worked with the. If you've heard of Frederator Studios, they're the animation studio that does Adventure Time and Bravest Warriors, and we worked with them to make a. We took one of the characters from Bravest Warriors and made a mobile game, Fly Cat Bug Fly, a few years back. So we've one of the it's always great to be able to I just love doing game development so much. I just go home and I continue game development. That's basically it. And sometimes you don't get a whole lot done because you only have maybe an hour or 2 hours. But our philosophy always is, as long as you're working towards something, and we always have different projects going, even though Bonnie's no longer at Shell Games, we're still working together on things like some this GDC talk and hopefully more things in the future.
Yeah,
so.
Like Mike and I have both talked that we had a blast working together on Baker Street, and hopefully we'll continue working together because he's awesome.
Nice.
Nice.
I want to keep working with him.
So you want to hear?
Before we go, the two things. David would like to know how long have you two both been into video games?
Like
how long have you liked? How long have you? Yeah.
I was born next to a computer, probably. I don't remember not ever having either an Atari or an Apple IIc, which then became a Sega Genesis and a Game Boy and beyond. So forever. Yes. Does that count?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sort of the same story here. My parents got me a NES back when I was 5, and I enjoyed playing games, but I didn't really get serious about game development until my uncle had an Apple II and some basic editing programs, and I just started playing around with things like HyperCard. And,
oh man, yeah, I remember HyperCard. I loved HyperCard because my school started using it in high school, and we made basic early portfolio pieces and really cheesy, badly started interactive games, at least because they could hyperlink to each other. And it's like turning a PowerPoint into a game basically was maybe the first type of one I did.
Yep. I made the very first game I made was an adventure game set in my middle school. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. Well, it's time to start wrapping up. Before we go, Michael and Bonnie, are there any projects you're working on that you got coming up, and where and when can people see your GDC talk?
Oh, geez, when can? I just had it.
What a great question.
Well, first I can answer that our GDC talk will be on Monday during the Narrative Summit, and
3 p.m.
It's on. It's at 3 p.m. Yep. 3 p.m. It's a 30-minute session.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we're going to go off to the breakout room after in case anybody wants to ask us any questions once we're kicked off the stage.
Right.
So that should be fun. There's also some links. I don't know if you guys can help us share them out. We actually did an article a while back on the Shell Games blog talking about the process, about how we made the game. Brian, I shared that with you.
Yeah, I'll drop those into the chat after. I can't get them up right now without ruining the stream.
And on there's also a full credit list because I'd just love to shout out to all the voice actors and people who helped us work on this project, because it was one of those weird projects that came out super fun in the end, and we're just so happy it's live. And I can say that currently I'm working on sound design for a game called Avon Colony, which is the beta's already out. If you like SimCity and space, that's going on. And I said earlier, I recently did some voice acting for a game that's coming out from Earplay called Pugmire. So if you like D&D, except everybody has the head of a dog except for cats, that should be coming out in the near future too.
And remember, they're all good dogs, Bront.
They're all good dogs. And if anybody has an all access pass, I'm also doing another talk on Tuesday of GDC. I think it's called Department of One, Party of One. It's about 4 years while I was at Shell Games, I was sort of the one-person audio department, and it's sort of tips on how to organize yourself whenever you're managing multiple games at the same time without kind of going bonkers.
Yep.
Right on, Michael. What's up with you?
Yep. So I'm current at Shell Games. I've been the technical director on a project called Happy Atoms. It's both a toy and physical. It's a physical toy and also a digital app where you can be.
I can help.
Oh.
I worked on it too.
Visual aid.
Oh, it's upside down, Bonnie.
Oh no. That's what it looks like.
That's cool.
Yep, but basically it's a way to teach kids chemistry in a fun, tangible manner. It's sort of like building Legos.
On a tablet.
So that just came out in December. So that's the most recent project I worked on. And yep, as I said, I'm also an independent developer. We just released a game last year called Outdodge. So please check that out on iOS and Android. And yeah, otherwise, I'm also involved in Pittsburgh, just organizing. I'm on the board of directors for the IGDA here in Pittsburgh. So we host things like global game jams. So yeah.
Cool.
There's me.
Doing good.
Ooh.
Well,
I have a new
nice.
card. It's what I look like. Oh, crazy.
Yeah. Oh, crazy.
Right on. So yeah, it is sadly just time to wrap up. Thank you. Just quick shout outs to the chat. Thank you, Avis and Spoder Girl, for joining us at the last second. We hope you all check out the full video, which will be available shortly after we're done here. Thank you all for joining us. You've wasted another perfectly good hour on the Gamasutra Twitch stream. Thank you, Bonnie and Michael, for joining us today.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm Bryant, contributing editor to Gamasutra, and Alex. This is Alex over here somewhere. This is also contributing editor to Gamasutra. If you liked what you saw here today, please subscribe to the channel. We would appreciate your subscription so that we can keep giving you great interviews, gameplay commentary, editor roundtables. Alex, what's that game you really want to play? What do you want to play next on the stream?
What do I want to play? I just want to play Deus Ex over and over and over again until the end of time.
There we go.
Oh, man.
We can play whatever you want.
And if you're going to GDC, look down below and you will see a link to Bonnie and Michael's talk. In just a few seconds, if you stick around in the chat, I will put in the credits for Bonnie and Michael's game, Baker Street Experience. That's the Baker Street Experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baker and Street. For free.
It's free. If you have an Amazon Echo, you can check it out. I'll put a link to all that stuff in the chat.
Awesome.
Gamasutra and GDC are sibling organizations of the UBM Americas, so please keep that in mind. Disclosure. And thank you all for joining us. Have a nice day. Bye.
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 Thanks, guys.